This is the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast session number 223. Doug O'Brien on Ericksonian Hypnosis.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
So it's a bit of a curious thing how we can often become inspired in ways far beyond hypnosis, far beyond even NLP, in terms of the trainings and courses that we as practitioners often go through, which is a wonderfully cryptic way of introducing Doug O'Brien to all of you. Doug is someone who, quite honestly, I give a lot of credit to for in the ways that he's inspired the work that I do. And a story that some of you may already know that I'm clearly holding back from, but buckle up, I have to tell it in a few moments, because it's back around July 2012, which, remember that month, by the way, July 2012, that I traveled up to Maryland where Doug was a guest at a training that I went to featuring Sleight of Mouth, one of the big topics that we're going to cover in this week's podcast conversation. Sleight of Mouth, if you're not familiar with it, and Doug's going to give a full history to it as well here in this recording, is the mindset of basically taking someone else's belief structure and feeding it back to them in a respectful way that by doing so, the belief structure does not quite hold up the way that it did before. And Doug describes it as a bit of like verbal Aikido, which is instead of martial arts being a style of who can hit or punch or kick the hardest, it's instead about using the opponent's energy to feed back to them in such a way to take them down. So it's a very respectful system, and I'd share it's very much the mindset behind as soon as someone calls me up, and the same way into their problem is the way out of the problem. The same way that often dealing with business, that the possible objections or concerns someone would possibly have about going into the process are then fed back to them in such a way, respectfully using their own words and their own belief systems, that then brings it into question, and now they break through their own blocks and start to create some awesome changes. And again, back to July 2012, or remember that week, we'll come back to it in a bit. I wanted to have Doug on the program because tracking his work in terms of social media and then email marketing streams as well, of course, picking up that around 2013 is when Doug got interested in the practice of havening. And just an amazing story of where these methods come from and the ways that he's really built this integrative system working with his clients through conversational hypnosis, formal hypnotic trance, as well as the connection with the havening methods. So you're going to hear a rather robust conversation talking about his whole approach, and Doug's definitely a guy you're going to want to get in touch with. All the links and details are over at worksmarthypnosis.com. And for those that don't know the story, it's earlier in 2019, this year that I'm recording this episode intro here, that Doug and I connected by email, and he had just mentioned, hey, I'm going to be at HypnoThoughts Live for the first time this year. Could you put up a testimonial because you took my class? And I responded to Doug, yes, I have a testimonial that I have owed you for years, but I have to do it my own way. Which I'll shorten the story here because basically realizing only in recent years that the last date of the Sleight of Mouth training with Doug O'Brien was actually July 13th, 2013, which exactly 9 months later was the birth of my son, Max. That's right, April 9th, 2013, which for what it's worth, my wife and I had been trying at that point, but it turns out the one magical night, thanks Doug. His middle name is Michael, by the way, not Doug, which we've had that chat as well. So again, we can derive inspiration from wonderfully unique sources. So I'd highly recommend any of Doug's materials. He's got an outstanding online course teaching some of these materials as well. And my side effects may not be yours, so you may learn with wonderful delight and enjoyment and maintain the size of your family as you listen to it as well. Yeah. Hypnosis is fun. While you're also online checking out his courses, head over to hypnoticworkers.com. Hypnotic Workers is the all-access pass to my hypnosis training library. Everything from rethinking classic inductions, a whole lot of work on hypnotic phenomenon, creating those magical moments in the change process, and more importantly, linking it to the change, plus some unique client testimonials and client demonstrations, which have been fully transcribed for you to model the language patterns of everything from migraine removal to weight loss to stop smoking, plus coming into the system really soon, working with a client with some sleepwalking issues and just getting a full video waiver signed off so I can share that with all of you as well. Check that out. That's coming soon to hypnoticworkers.com. Here's a wonderful conversation talking about all things Ericksonian hypnosis, NLP, and havening. Here we go. Episode number 223, Doug O'Brien on Ericksonian hypnosis.
Hey, so yeah, my first introduction to NLP and hypnosis was way back when I was a professional musician in New York City and had a girlfriend that had taken Tony Robbins' Firewalk experience. And back in those days, the way that marketing went for Tony was to kind of like the forum model, is to bring your friends and family next time he was in town. So she dragged me kicking and screaming to this Firewalk experience in 1985, and I've been forever grateful. It was amazing. I don't know if many of your viewers have done that, but it's quite remarkable. And Tony at the time was an NLP trainer. He was actually using the Firewalk as an intro to NLP. So that was my first taste of NLP, and I just wanted more. And I went to his certification. I got much Robert Dilts' certifications, or Richard Bandler's certifications. Pretty much anybody who was teaching it and would let me in, I went and learned from them. And that, of course, led me to Ericksonian Hypnosis, which led me to various trainers of that.
Yeah, and I'm curious to ask, from going back to that experience, what would you say it was that grabbed your attention, that piqued your curiosity? About
NLP in the first place?
Yes.
Well, gosh, the Firewalk is a pretty good demonstration that it works. Or at least, that's my belief, was that I was able to walk across these hot burning coals, which were very hot burning coals. They say 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure that's accurate, but it's certainly hot. And, walk out across them without a blister was great. And then, just other things as well. The switch pattern that I learned early that weekend and other things that really I could notice an effect with, that to say, holy crap, this stuff works.
Yeah. So then from there, what was that? You mentioned doing quite a bit of training after that. Any sort of experience stands out in terms of, getting that training and then kind of realizing, this is something I want to devote a lot of time and energy into?
Yeah, well, as I said, I was a marathon. I didn't say this. I was a musician. I was also a marathon runner.
Oh, okay.
So I just wanted to get better at those things in the first place. So NLP wasn't about me becoming a trainer or becoming a therapist or whatever. It was about me improving my life. And NLP was about that. It was about modeling people who are great at what they did, so you can take that ability on yourself. So I wanted to become a better musician, a better marathon runner. I wanted to, run faster and qualify for the Boston Marathon. I had these goals that I thought NLP could help me accomplish.
So was it a matter then of, let's say, performance enhancement, or was it a matter of kind of clearing away some of the things that were making it not as effective for you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it was exactly those things. The funny thing about NLP and hypnosis is that it really does allow a person to get in touch with their good stuff, but a lot of it is really kind of getting your blocks out of the way so you can just do what's necessary to make it happen. Practice more. It's not going to make you a great musician just because you took an NLP class or something, but it will help you get out of your way so you can practice more and practice more effectively. You still have to work at stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not just all, I wish it were, by the way, I wish it were all just sort of go to a hypnotist and get this zap and everything's better. But you still have to, diet and exercise, basically, if you're going to lose weight and keep it off. Still have to change your lifestyle. You have to do those things. I think NLP hypnosis just helps you do those things.
Yeah, I love that as a mindset that, I use the phrase that you can bring me an opera singer and I can work with her to feel a whole lot more confident on stage. But in terms of her ability to actually hit those notes, it's got to come down to her training, her experience, her preparation, and her readiness as well.
Yeah. And, like Yogi Berra said, success is 90% preparation and the other half is work. Or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he said. But yeah, it's that. There is belief obviously in there. The belief I can hit that high note when I'm, on stage, and it's that moment when everybody's watching me and I can do that. That's belief. And the other 90% of it is, the preparation and the practice.
Which, by the way, that's a true reference, except when I said that to the client, she then corrected me going, I do not hit notes, I caress the notes.
Ah, sweet.
That's a whole other episode.
Oh my God, that's great. Yeah, I love that.
Right? Well, you got to respect expertise, which you brought up two terms here, which the new student of hypnosis will often reach out to me and even ask the question of, hey, here's this upcoming issue. Here's this client I want to work with. Would you use hypnosis or NLP for that? What's the Doug O'Brien answer to that sort of thing?
Yes.
There you go. All right, that was great. So plug your books.
Yeah, basically, hypnosis is good for everything. I mean, come on, it's good for everything. Because, and that's probably not a good marketing strategy. You should probably have a niche or rich, as some people call it, because it rhymes with rich. I've heard that somewhere.
I heard that
too. Yeah, you should probably have a niche when it comes to marketing. But ultimately, hypnosis is about belief systems, and that's going to set you free, or it's going to keep you chained. It's what it's all about. Any performance enhancement is about belief. Any, getting rich and becoming successful, any relationship thing, it's all about belief. And hypnosis is about that.
Well, I think the question also goes back to the perception of, here's the category of NLP, and then there's the category of hypnosis. How do you go about drawing that line?
I don't.
Good, perfect, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I basically don't. Over the years, it's just become such a blurred thing. There are times when, of course, I will say, okay, sit back, close your eyes, and let's do some hypnosis here. But I'm from the 60s, so it's hypnosis for me. But throughout the session, I'm telling stories, I'm being aware of their other than conscious communication. I'm, interacting with that, with the body language, the other than conscious communication. It's all hypnosis in a way. And then there's some formal trance where I'll just sort of buy into their belief system that we need to do that. It's almost a convincer more than anything else. So we'll just take 10 minutes or whatever and do some deep trance in order just basically to convince them that they got the pill. Just as an example for that for a moment. When I used to work with Dr. Oz at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, I was doing pre-surgical hypnosis for patients prior to basically heart surgery, open heart, or transplant surgery with him. This was in the 90s, in case you're tracking it. We were partially there to explore whether hypnosis could be seen as a viable thing to use in a hospital setting, and it proved that it was, by the way. And one of the things we noticed is that a person needs to know that they got the pill for a placebo to work. Part of hypnosis is, in effect, the belief, so therefore the placebo effect is part of our stock and trade, if you will. But they need to know they got the pill. If you snuck in the middle of the night and slipped them a pill when they were sleeping and put it in their IV or something, and they had no idea that they got it, it wouldn't be effective, right? They need to know they got the pill. So in a way, convincers and hypnosis and basically hypnosis itself is them getting the pill. They need to feel like, whoa, something happened here, and that was different, that was unusual, and that means all this other stuff's going to work too.
I mean, that's one of those elements that, we can be in the session, and if someone leaves with that perception of, well, I guess I was hypnotized, I felt really relaxed, to give that proof. So I'm curious, how do you incorporate that into the work that you do nowadays, if at all?
Well, it's always going to be there. Like I said, with the hypnosis, it's part of it. We want them to have some kind of experience throughout in this session that something out of the ordinary happened. Mm-hmm. And I usually set it up and suggest that, other clients that I've had this happen, and that means this. So I'm using that sort of structure of a belief system that we get from Sleight of Mouth. If this happens, then that means this. I sort of set that up in the pre-talks, et cetera. And then we do it, so they have that experience. So then they, the arm reaches up by itself and touches their face, and they can't control it, or something. They close their eyes when they didn't mean to, or a time distortion happens, and 20 minutes went by, it felt like 5, something like that. Whatever it might be, however, they can look back at it and say, "Wow, yeah, that was really something," and that therefore means that all that other stuff is going to be true too.
Which was a perfect transition to sort of bring our conversation over to these themes of Sleight of Mouth.
Oh, how about that?
How about that? Look at that.
Isn't that cool? It just slipped right in there. Yeah.
Which, for those that are new to this, could you give kind of an intro to this topic?
Sure. Sleight of Mouth is basically NLP turned on itself. In other words, NLP was about modeling excellence. So Richard Bandler, John Grinder modeled people like Fritz Perls and Gestalt therapy and Virginia Satir and family therapy and, of course, Milton Erickson and Ericksonian Hypnosis. They modeled their abilities to do those amazing things. And that's, in a sense, what NLP has become. It's a codification of those strategies and structures that those people used. Along the way, one of the co-developers of NLP, Robert Dilts, was watching how Richard Bandler was amazingly persuasive. They did this process throughout the certification courses, which back then were 28 days, which towards the end of it, they attempted to get the now almost certified NLP practitioners to say, let's see how persuasive you are. Richard would adopt a belief that was, obviously not true, but he would challenge them to convince him otherwise. And he was very persuasive, always won the argument somehow. And Robert Dilts was sitting back with, astonishment at how he was always able to win these arguments.
Which, correct me on this if I'm remembering it right, part of it was that a platform would be broken, and he clearly broke it himself, but he would get someone almost convinced that they broke it?
Or someone in the audience sabotaged the stage and so he wanted that person's identity discovered and have the person, thrown out on their ear kind of thing before the seminar could continue. So I'm not going another step forward until this is resolved. And he'd make this big thing out of it, and he was very good at acting, highly charged, let's just say. So it was like a big emotional thing, and people were like, interestingly, when people are emotionally charged, they sometimes go back to their old patterns. So they had to stop doing that. They had to start thinking, what NLP do I know here, instead of just going back to my usual fear state, what I used to do. So it was really a positive and effective little moment in their trainings. So Robert Dilts was watching this happen and noticed that he used certain patterns over and over again. Like he used a consequence pattern, he called it. So when Robert Dilts noticed that Richard was saying, well, the consequence of your believing that is such and such, and he did that over and over again in various situations, Dilts said, well, I'm going to call that the consequence pattern. Mm-hmm. And he basically, over the course of time, codified 14 different patterns that Richard would use. The consequence pattern, the intention pattern, the hierarchy of criteria pattern, the redefined pattern, a bunch of them, 14 different ones. And then he made this little chart out of them so that you could have access to them very easily and efficiently, and that became Sleight of Mouth.
Yeah. So then the application for this, it comes down to, correct me on this, taking someone else's belief system, and I'd throw in the modifying word of respectfully, feeding it back to them in such a way that the belief system doesn't quite hold up anymore.
That's very well put. Yes, I would say that's true. And not only does it not hold up anymore, but they see how there is an alternative as well that they could go to. So to use an analogy of getting them out of the boondocks, you don't want to just say, I don't want to be in the boondocks anymore. I also now want to go to the big city. They want to go from here to there.
Well, it's that awareness at times that often the way into the problem is also the way out of the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So using the belief structure on itself.
Right. Perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there, because you sort of explain one or two of them
Sure.
for the audience out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And interestingly, I'm going to give away a little bit of my way of doing it that's different, I think, from Robert Dilts's, et cetera, is that I learned this thing from Tony Robbins a long time ago called the agreement frame, which I don't know if he made up or not, but he taught it in such a way that I really got it. And it's to say that when you are in an argument with someone, some sort of disagreement, I don't know, I'm using the word argument as a sort of classical argument. It doesn't have to be an argument like you're duking it out something, but it's, you're in a difference of beliefs about something. So you're discussing the differences. When you have this argument, people will often say, yes, but, and they just basically hold their position by saying, yeah, but, it's kind of butting up against each other. And so what Tony said is that to get out of that, it's kind of like a verbal aikido, because in aikido, instead of punching back, you accept the person's, thrust and redirect it down to the floor or somewhere else. So with verbal aikido, you say yes and. I agree with you, and let's look at it from this perspective, or I respect what you're saying, and I think we can get better results from this direction. It's I respect, or I appreciate, or I agree, and instead of using the word but, you always use the word and. So that agreement frame is a very elegant way of, accepting a person's energy and aligning with them, having that rapport, matching and, standing with them, and then, guiding them to a different way of perspective. just to seeing it, different way of looking at it. So one of the sleight of mouth patterns I also already mentioned is the consequence pattern. The one I often start with that aligns with this agreement pattern so well is the intent pattern or the intention pattern, where you basically say, yeah, I see that. I agree. I see how your intention is to do this, X behavior or this X result. And what you're actually getting is Y. So why don't you join with me and we'll go and find a way to, better accomplish X, which is your intention anyway. And then we can slip from the intention over to the consequence and say, because if you don't, the consequence will be that you'll be stuck at this Y situation and you'll always be wondering why. Why should I be doing that? See what I did there?
I know. So let's put this into the context of, let's say, there's a lot of people listen to this, and one side of things for the strategies working with clients, but the other side of it working with business. So someone's called in, and here's the scenario of they very clearly have expressed they'd like to quit smoking, but now they hear the rate, and wow, that's a lot of money. I can't afford that.
Right. So you want to use that as an example?
Yeah, let's use that as an example to branch off of.
Okay, so I know your intent is to save money, and what you're actually doing is just stopping yourself from progressing at all in life. So isn't it more important to invest your money wisely in something that's going to really give you great results, which will ultimately take you to a place that you've always wanted to go in your life?
Nice. Which I love the use of the stopping in a different context there too.
Well, yeah, in a way, it's like you want to chunk up to different levels because they're just talking about money, but you're talking about, direction in life, which is much more important, of course.
Yeah. So then these are strategies that we can use, of course, not just in the conversation for booking the client, but also as part of the process to get the change in motion as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's interesting because sleight of mouth, as you said, is usually used for other people. You use sleight of mouth to change their beliefs. You can use it for yourself as well, because we all have beliefs and we all have stumbling blocks. I mean, obviously, we do. Sometimes they're harder to notice our own than it is somebody else's, but we all have them. So it's nice to be able to do kind of a self-coaching strategy and, notice what your beliefs are that are stopping you, and then find your own best way out of that using sleight of mouth or other ways of doing that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So then let's say someone's coming now into your space, and just to kind of get that user feel of something, someone's now working with you. How would you characterize that process? How does it typically play out?
Well, it's very conversational. I mean, for the most part, people don't realize that the session has begun when the session has probably been already 15 minutes into the process. We're just talking. Part of what I like to do is I like to align their new behavior with something they're already good at, something that maybe they've been good at in their lifetime that they're not necessarily doing anymore. Like, for instance, a person might have been an avid baseball player when they were a kid on the Little League teams and loved playing shortstop or something like that. Maybe they haven't done that in years. Right now they're a businessman or a businesswoman or something like that. But if I can just sort of chat with them and find out what things they like to do when they're a kid and, discover this gold that's in their history of being a first baseman or shortstop or whatever, then I can use that later on. And I think a metaphor is much, much more powerful when it truly aligns to what a person already has inside them.
I mean, to look at the ability to pull something out that's organic rather than craft some confident feeling that's now fabricated and not, natural to them, instead to draw out what's already there.
Yep. So later on in the session, I'd say, it occurs to me that, building this business of yours, this online presence, is really just like playing baseball. And I just give them 2 or 3 examples of how that would be true. And generally speaking, their unconscious mind starts going like, oh my God, that's right, it is like that. And they have all those resources in there. And they just start pulling them up and surprising everybody at how massively resourceful they've become. But it's actually, they've always had it. We're just bringing it out. And that's kind of one of the essential ingredients or basic tenets of Ericksonian hypnosis, which is to say that we all have the resources inside us already, to do whatever we want to do. We just have to get access to them.
Mm-hmm. So to model what's already there and then draw it out, put it into use.
Yep.
So is that mostly done conversational in your world, or is that perhaps more of a deep trance experience?
No, it's much more conversational.
Beautiful.
I like to do both. I figure we have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. In a session with me, there will almost always be some deep trance. We will at some point always get to there, whether it's conversationally and they're just sort of find themselves drifting off while we're sitting in a chair, or I'll say, okay, now close your eyes and go deeper. We'll get there.
Yeah. Outstanding. So then I know one of the other elements of your work is that of havening. Could you chat about that for a bit as well?
Sure. Love to. Yeah, the havening techniques are remarkable. They're psychosensory therapy. Many people know what those are. Tapping is an example of a psychosensory therapy. EMDR is an example of a psychosensory therapy. Basically, what we do with a psychosensory therapy is we look to get a emotional or belief change, emotional or a healing on a psychological, emotional level, but we use the body to get there. So tapping, you tap on the face or the arms or the hands or whatever, you tap at different places. EMDR, you move your eyes back and forth laterally, you use cross-lateral stimulation to create basically the same change. And what havening has discovered is the reason those things work is when you do stimulation on the arms or the face or different places, what you're creating are very slow delta waves in the brain and the body. The body is an electrical chemical system, and then when you do the stimulation, it creates delta waves. The delta waves is the secret sauce. Delta waves is why EMDR works. The delta waves is why tapping works. And what havening has done is it's recognized that, and it sort of has stripped out from the process anything that doesn't focus on that, and put all of its energy on what does create those delta waves, and takes it from there. So it's really kind of like a tapping or a EMDR, psychosensory therapy, but next generation. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah, and of course, with an audio podcast, this is where it gets into our wonderful descriptive hypnotic language patterns. Could you describe the physicality of it, what it actually looks like?
Sure. Basically, havening touch is one of three places. And just by the way, this is not somebody's opinion. They did research on this, they know that when the body is touched in these three places, the body sends delta waves to the brain. The brain in turn releases oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin and calcineurin. I mean, it happens when you touch the arms from the shoulders down to the elbows. And it's a downward stroke. They stroke, just rubbing like you're putting on suntan lotion, rubbing your arms from the shoulders down to the elbows, lifting off, and then stroking down again from the shoulders to the elbows in that direction. The question could be asked, why downwards? The answer is simply that it feels better. When you stroke upwards, it's like petting a cat against the grain, It's weird, but that's true. Technically, it shouldn't matter, but it does.
I mean, it's a simple throwaway, the hypnotic deepening method of having your hand on their shoulder, and as they're exhaling, you're pressing down lightly. And in a recent class, someone goes, why don't we do it when they're inhaling? I go off and try that. Yeah. And within 20 seconds, they're going, point made.
Yeah, exactly. Got it. Right. And then the other places where you get delta waves is the forehead and the cheeks. Places on the face, you can do them individually, the forehead by itself or the cheeks by themselves. Or you can do them collectively by, using an open palm on your face and just stroking. And the other place where you get havening delta waves conveniently is the palms of the hands. So interestingly, places like the gamut point and places on the chest or whatever, you get no delta waves. Like 1.5 or something like that, 0.5. It's like no delta wave, basically. You get a lot, like 30 times over baseline on the arms. You get like 30 to 40 times over baseline. You get like 60 to 90% over baseline on the face. So we focus on that. So you're stroking in a gentle, natural way. If you think about it, it's very, very natural. With a mother, has the baby that's stroking just happens automatically. They stroke the face. Oh, the baby. It's petting. It's stroking. It's natural. If a kid runs to their mother in the middle of the night because there's lightning and they're afraid, the mother doesn't sit them down and tap them. They don't do that. They stroke. They say, it's okay, Johnny. It's just a natural little stroking thing. It's human. It's beautiful, and it's very, very, very effective. And the client can do it themselves, and they'll get the same benefits. So if there's a reason why the person doesn't want to have the therapist touching them, which is fine, they can do it themselves. They're going to get the same effect.
Yeah, which I'm fascinated by the way that it all kind of blends together now, that here's a conversational style. There's the actual, let's call it formal hypnotic work. Where does the havening fit in with you?
Well, when you do hypnosis, when you do deep sleep stuff, you get down to delta waves. It's the brain wave action when you're in a really deep state. Delta is the slowest brain wave. It is the slowest. It's 0.5 to 4 hertz. So you're generating that automatically when you stroke the arms and the face and the hands. You're getting delta waves. So it's almost like a shortcut to the hypnagogic state by doing havening. So when you combine them together, it's just such a seamless combo that I use it pretty much every time. I would say I probably use havening with about 90% of my clients at this point. Partially also because they can do it for themselves, and I want them to learn self-care. I want people to go home and build resilience by visualizing what they want to have in their life and doing this havening stuff, which gets the hippocampus involved and helps them consolidate memories that haven't happened yet because they're visualizing something in the future. It's remarkable work.
Yeah, and I'm curious to ask this then. Is this something that you've been using now for quite some time? Is it more of a newer development for you?
Well, it's newer in my history. I mean, I've been doing, like I said, Tony Robbins' event was 1985. I've been a full-time hypnotist and NLP therapist, if you will, and trainer since 1990. That has been my full-time gig since 1990. I learned havening in 2013. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's relatively new. I became a trainer of havening in 2014. So I would say, to me, it's relatively new still, but it's been 6 years.
Yeah. Which that's a fascinating concept. What's that measurement for you as to whether or not something gets added to the repertoire?
Effectiveness.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. Pure and simple. I learn things. I'm always taking seminars and learning stuff. This is a lifelong journey for me. I'm open. I try to be, anyway, open to possibilities. If it works, then I keep it. If it doesn't, I don't. If it works effectively and easily, then, I'll sometimes keep it and throw something else I used to do out. Redesign things, evaluate.
Well, I wanted to actually go back to something that you mentioned a little while ago, which was that it was a research project involving Dr. Oz. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Could you chat a little bit more about that? Because that was something that could be a whole topic unto its own. What was the shape of that research that you were doing?
Well, in 1994, I got involved in what was called the Department of Complementary Medicine. I'm sorry, it's not true. It was called the Complementary Care Center. And basically it was Dr. Oz and a few other people at Columbia Presbyterian who were studying the efficacy of different, and I'm doing air quotes here, alternative therapies. Could you hear those air quotes?
I could hear them really well, yeah. I'll make sure the editors highlight that.
Alternative therapies in a hospital setting. So we had people like me doing hypnosis. We had massage therapists and Qigong teachers, yoga teachers, therapeutic touch practitioners. We had a number of different things, acupuncture, acupressure, a bunch of different things were being studied. They found some really interesting ways of doing like faux acupuncture. Like they had these needles that were embedded in a Band-Aid. So they could put a Band-Aid on and put a needle through. People wouldn't know if the needle actually went through the Band-Aid into their body or not. So people could believe they were really getting acupuncture when they weren't. So it was really great. It's very difficult to do a faux hypnosis.
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
it was really basically impossible to do a double-blind study with hypnosis. So we did the best we could. And
I mean, the best I've heard, there was one study that had, well, then again, this is still hypnotic suggestion. There was one that was relaxation only. The other one was relaxation plus suggestion, to which I'm going, well, the relaxation is now suggestion as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So we did the best we could. And I will say that by the time this study was finished, there were only two modalities still in the hospital, and one of them was hypnosis and the other one was massage. And pretty much everything else was gone from their daily use there. So I think that's kind of interesting,
Now, was this purely surgical, or what was the application?
It was in the studies. It was purely surgical. Yeah, they wanted to see basically how much shorter a hospital stay was, how much less pain medications they needed, things like that. So things that were actually basically down to dollar amounts. If they needed less medication, then the person paid less. If they were in the hospital a shorter duration, then the person paid less. So it's kind of like what could improve the bottom line from a hospital perspective. And hypnosis definitely did, and massage definitely did.
Yeah, and was the focus then on just healing time suggestion? Was it actually towards work during surgery as well?
Yeah, my work was probably primarily pre-surgical. The suggestions, I would do at least one live session with them and record the recording and give them a recording that they listen to over and over again, and also during surgery. So the surgical outcomes would be better and, fewer complications, and that therefore they could get out faster with less pain medication.
Yeah. Now, the work from that, is that something that would you say influenced the work that you're doing nowadays?
Absolutely, yeah.
How so?
Well, the medical efficacy, does it actually work? And can we, have some proof for that? And that's basically, by the way, one of the reasons I like havening so much is because havening was created by Dr. Ronald Rudin, who is an MD. And he is also a PhD. He's got a PhD in organic chemistry. So he didn't want anybody to know about his research until he felt he had proved it. So he didn't tell anybody for about 6 years, except for his twin brother, Stephen Rudin, who is also a doctor, but a doctor of dental surgery, DDS. Nobody knew about it for a good 6 years until he was pretty certain why this was working. So it wasn't conjecture. It wasn't, Chinese medicine or whatever. It was Western studies, medicine, kind of stuff that you could look at.
Yeah, which I love that as an application, because we do find ourselves, not to spend the negative briefly, but we find ourselves in this pattern of, here's the technique I like doing because I like doing it. Here's something creative, and yet we want to see at the end of the day, does it actually work? Does it get the result?
Does it get the result is the bottom line. For me, the reason havening works is also even better than that, is not only does it work, and it also has that science behind it. Mm-hmm. It actually is scientifically provable, which is like, to me, it's like, that's the golden goose right there. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Good to have numbers at the end of the day. So then nowadays, I know you're up in New York. Is there a specific thing that you tend to work with more than anything else?
Well, like I said, I do havening with about 90% of my people. And that's especially true if they're coming for what havening is originally designed for, which is phobias or traumas. If people have those, then it's certainly my go-to situation. And that being said, I did NLP with the Research and Recognition Project, the R&R.org, Research and Recognition Project.org. It's using havening for traumas, havening with veterans, and I'm sorry, not havening, NLP with veterans. And it worked fantastically, amazingly, much better than anything that the Veterans Administration had been giving them. NLP works really, really well. Even in spite of that, 90%, I'd say, of the people that I work with for trauma, I don't do NLP with them. I mean, I do some, of course, but I don't do that whole process we did with the veterans in this study. I do havening. That's my go-to because it's just so darn effective.
Yeah. Is there a specific category of clients that are now coming in more for you?
I do a lot of phobias, a lot of fears, a lot of trauma stuff.
Yeah. Is there a story that kind of stands out of working with someone where it was this natural blend of these different elements?
It's interesting. There are so many at this point in time that kind of, I still am amazed at the power of this. I'm still amazed at I feel like I sort of sit back and watch miracles happen. But the one that is, I think for me, the most moving to me at the moment, at least, is that I was working with this autistic boy who had been traumatized. I just won't go into details, but let's just say he was definitely on the spectrum and definitely been traumatized. I wouldn't have been able to work with him with any of my other modalities. Couldn't have done NLP with him. I couldn't do hypnosis with him. It just wouldn't have worked. And havening didn't seem to work at first either. He kind of had a seemingly negative reaction to it. And for a couple of days, he was depressed, his mother said. And then she texted me and said, I think it's working. And I said, okay, tell me more. Why do you think it's working? He says, well, he came to me and he said, Mom, I can still remember that thing that happened, but it doesn't bother me anymore. And I just got chills, it was just like, holy crap. It really worked. And so they've been now back for 2-3 more sessions, and it's just been great. So Havening does for me two things. It enhances what I've already been doing. The hypnosis, the NLP is just not threatened by, but enhanced by havening. And I use them all interconnectedly very, very well. But it has also given me a sense of certainty, that I didn't always have before. In spite of the fact I've been at this for a while, I'm pretty well known for doing this stuff. I'm an internationally known trainer of NLP and stuff. I still would sometimes, if a person would come in with a trauma or whatever, go like, oh, golly, I hope this works. There'd be part of me thinking, yeah, I know I get 90, 95%, but still there's that 5%, gosh. I don't have that with havening. Havening, I just have 100% certainty. A person comes in and goes like, yes, I can help you. And I believe it wholeheartedly. It's a certainty. I know that I can. And that has helped my practice immensely.
Yeah. Is it something that you're getting an instant read on, or just having the research, having the efficacy behind it?
It's all that. It's just the basically the 100% success rate up till now has been very useful. that has helped my certainty a great deal, having it have always worked. Always worked. I will say one thing. I did work with a woman who had been lifelong. She didn't have like a trauma that happened like in 1997 or something like that. This was a lifelong series of events from basically birth. I've really never known anybody with such a devastatingly horrible life history. I mean, this was a challenge. And she had gone, she said, of course, many people say this, but I believed it in her case, that she'd tried everything. She'd been in therapy for a long time and tried many, many things, and nothing had worked at all. She was not open to havening at first. She'd read about the Research and Recognition Project, the NLP thing, and she wanted that. But again, that usually works really well when there is a specific incident that took place. Like, with the soldiers, it was like this, deployment that happened in Afghanistan, this one thing where, blah, blah, blah. It was a specific thing. Hers was a lifelong history. And yet, I had to, go with what she wanted. Of course, there are times when you have to try to placate or whatever, satisfy the needs of the person that is coming in there. So we went with...
Well, I mean, to embrace that sometimes there's just, let's use a hypnotic term, sometimes there's just that hypnotic contract.
Yeah.
That the person will sometimes call me and say, hey, I see that you trained this specific protocol. I want that.
Yes.
And as much as I've tried to get clever over the years to try to, reframe it to something else, to realize, no, wait, they're giving me a gift. I need to at least start with that. Yes. I can eventually bring in the other stuff.
Exactly.
But listen where it's appropriate.
Right. So we did that, and we got some results. I mean, it was better. So she saw something, and I told her about havening, and I told her what it was for. And so the next session, we did that. And like I think other psychosensory therapies, we use this SUDS scale, this subjective unit of distress scale. So you rate the feeling of fear or whatever it might be called on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is off the charts, like it is the top of the list. You can't get worse than that. And 0 is it's gone. So we got her down in the first session using the NLP thing. We got it down to like a 8 from a 10, which was still something, or 6 maybe. We got as far as that. And then the second session with the havening, it got down to a 0, which she didn't understand. She had never felt 0 in her lifetime. She had no reference for it. So that was pretty disturbing in its own funny sort of way, that she just had no reference for this feeling of no fear whatsoever. So I was reported later that she had reverted to some fear that had come back, and I wasn't surprised with a history like hers. And then something came up. I won't go into details, but it was a political disagreement. I said something about someone that she likes a lot, politically, that I don't particularly care for. And some of her religious views started coming to the surface that were at odds with some of my views. I didn't make a big thing out of it, but she was very, very adamant that, there were some things that she just wouldn't do, or people she just wouldn't talk to. So, my politics, perhaps, my who I am, got in the way a little bit of the treatment itself. So, So she didn't come back for a third session.
Yeah, which The reason why I've learned, take the magnet off the back of the car.
Yeah. So it was pretty, 99.9% of people in the world I'd say that thing to that I said, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's right." But she was that 0.1%. That was like, you said what? That I couldn't unframe that or deframe that. I couldn't.
Although it does make me flash back to, I believe, when we first met and I was in your Sleight of Mouth class, one of the prompts was, in terms of playing with the agreement frame to bring it full circle, someone then proposed we use a mildly, let's call it polarizing prompt, which was that, and the beauty of this was, you then had to switch sides.
Right.
And then defend the other. So if we were supporting an idea, we had to gain our flexibility and then choose the other side. And one of the prompts was, and again, doesn't matter what your personal opinion was, because in the exercise we had to argue both. And the prompt was, history will show that George W. Bush is the best president we've ever had. And someone in the group, all he could manage was, I agree he was a president. And so that ability to be that chameleon in the room, or I flashed to George Carlin, reducing the 10 Commandments down to one, thou shalt keep thy religion to thyself. I want to bring it all full circle because I know that you talk about the themes of Ericksonian hypnosis.
Yeah.
What makes it neo?
Well, that could be a whole podcast unto itself. And I'll just say this. I by training was a musician.
Yes.
I went to school for music. I got 2 bachelor's degrees, one in composition and one in piano performance. I was offered to go to a master's degree. I was offered to go to music therapy and decided I just had enough of school at that point in time and went to New York City to play in rock and roll bands. And then while I was here playing in rock and roll bands, I was introduced to the Tony Robbins thing, and the rest is history. So my degrees are in music. And when I started learning about Ericksonian hypnosis, I said, gosh, I want to learn more of this. Where can I go to learn this? I discovered the Erickson Foundation. And I said, gosh, I want to take your courses. And they said, no. They said, no, you're not degreed enough in the right way for our standards. So I couldn't take their courses. I never learned from Jeffrey Zeig, not directly. I watched his videos a billion times. Guess he forgot about that part. Read all the books and studied all that stuff. But I got most of my Ericksonian training from a guy who didn't do Ericksonian hypnosis. He did what he did, which was other than conscious communication. He's a guy named Dr. Dave Dobson, and I learned a lot from him. I also learned Ericksonian hypnosis from second-generation Ericksonians like Stephen Gilligan and Bill O'Hanlon and others who would let me into their classes. Not that Erickson was alive at the time. I tried, just the Erickson Foundation wouldn't let me in.
Right, yeah.
But few people would. Gilligan would, and O'Hanlon would, and some others. So I learned as much as I could, but then I realized that when I started teaching Ericksonian, I didn't really have a right, in a way, to be saying that what I was doing was Ericksonian, because I was learning from Dobson, who disavowed his Erickson. He'd only met Erickson once, but mostly he developed his stuff separately. So although it was very, very similar, if not parallel to Erickson, it was still not Ericksonian hypnosis. And all the NLP stuff I learned and was a master trainer of was not Ericksonian hypnosis. It was Bandler's and Grinder's version of it. So just to become more accurate in my description of what I did do, while it's tremendously effective, and I would put it up against any Ericksonian, anywhere. I can't, in all consciousness, say that it's Ericksonian. So Neo-Ericksonian is the best thing. And I would say also that, going back to your opera singer example, it's, if you try to do what you did before, it's not really generative. It's not really creating something new. It's not really developing anything. If I try to be as Erickson was doing his stuff in the 50s, in the 60s. And, we've learned a lot since then. We've stood on the shoulders of his genius, and we can get better, in a sense, collectively at what we do than he did, as much of a genius as he was. And I would say he was, in fact, a genius, and I am nowhere near that stature. But I can do things in a way that perhaps he couldn't, or wouldn't, or didn't. because I've learned from Gilligan and Bandler and all those other people and my own experiences, and now add havening to it and stuff. It just does a heck of a lot more than what Erickson is actually capable of doing.
I love that as the theme of, I go back to being a teenager and having a hobby doing magic. And here was the book that I was told, this is the #1 book on learning how to do sleight of hand magic with coins. And opening it up, one of the first things that I read was borrow a top hat from a gentleman in the audience. That we have to recognize that, we can step back and say that, these people were the greats, but at the same time, if they were still around, they would still be progressing, which I love that as the aspect of you getting into this work and then nearly 10 years later, discovering something else and going, let me add this into it as well.
Yeah.
So that continuation of that learning. So on that theme, perfect segue, by the way, on that theme, where can people check out more from you online?
Well, I have a couple of websites actually. To find me just most quickly, DougO'BrienHypnosis.com is my website for, working with me directly. But if you want to learn what I do, if you want to learn about Ericksonian hypnosis and NLP and that sort of thing, havening, then you'd go to the Ericksonian.com. I got a call a few years ago from Carol Erickson, Milton's daughter, and she said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Doug. Why do you ask?" I said, "Well, how did you get Ericksonian.com?" And I said, "I asked for it, and nobody else had taken it back in 1993 or whatever year it was when I got it." So yes, Ericksonian.com is my website, and you will find everything you want to know there.
Excellent. And we'll put links over to the show notes over at worksmarthypnosis.com. And Doug, you mentioned you've also got a training coming up for those that are listening to this as it launches in October.
Yeah, I'm doing, you know what, I'm going to go give you the dates. I'm going to go to my website right now. Yeah, I have a Sleight of Mouth training in New York City in October, and I'll give you the dates in just one moment. I have a havening training in Oslo, Norway in October also, if anybody's over there on your listening base. Also doing a Neo-Ericksonian training. I've combined that a lot with the NLP, so it's a much longer training than perhaps some people are used to. It's a 6-day training, a Neo-Ericksonian hypnosis training. So October 26th and 27th is when Sleight of Mouth is happening. October 26th and 27th in New York City. And the Neo-Ericksonian hypnosis training certificate level 1 is 3 weekends starting in November. Goes 3 weekends in November and December.
Awesome. And we'll put links over in the show notes again over at worksmarthypnosis.com. Before we wrap it up, any final thoughts to share for the listeners out there?
Just that, it is an amazing field that we're in. This long time ago, I was reading these books by Carlos Castaneda about the teachings of Don Juan. Fascinating. I won't go into it, but one of the things Don Juan always said is that you need to find a path with a heart. That your life path has to have a heart. You keep on. It's not just for the money. It's not just for the social standing or whatever. You do it because it's deep. It's rich. It's got a heart. And for me, when I discovered NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis, it was just like, yes, this is Ericksonian hypnosis is such a rich and deep thing. It is my lifelong study and learning. I'm always learning more. I've watched Ericksonian videos, Erickson working with people, dozens, hundreds of times, and I still learn more. It's like, did he say that before? He must. It's a video, but I didn't hear that before. It never got through my thick head before. So I'm always learning, and it's just such a wonderful, rich, beautiful thing. So just keep on keeping on.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for interacting with this program, for leaving your reviews online, and sharing this week's episode on your social media streams. And once again, head over to the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com to see how to connect with Doug and pick up any of his programs or upcoming trainings. And also, once again, check out hypnoticworkers.com. Get the all-access pass to my hypnosis training library and digital access format, plus a thriving online community that's there to support you. Check that out, hypnoticworkers.com. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at worksmarthypnosis.com.
Hey there, it's Jason, and I want you to be one of the first to find out as we upload amazing new content. So do this right now. Click the subscribe button right here on this video. That's going to link you to our YouTube channel here, and you will be the first to find out as new resources and downloads are made available. Do it now.